first thing I want to kind of introduce the context of this class, so to speak. I am not a counselor. I don't have a license for a counselor, and if I had, I probably wouldn't exercise it. This is not intended as a counseling, quote-unquote, session. Counseling I define as giving some down-to-earth, practical advice as to how do you get around this problem, how do you present something to your husband or to your wife that they don't want to hear, this kind of things. What the intent of this, and the reason that I kind of consented of going with this, is that I've met with quite a number of young people, and spoken, from various perspectives, various contexts, and I found out that the nicest people, with all good intents, get married, and they have every good intent, not only to tolerate each other, but to help each other and to present the best possible cooperation and so forth. But the bottom line, they don't know what it's all about. Even to the extent, like we speak in terms of division of responsibility. Now, division of responsibility varies from home to home, circumstances and so forth. When I speak of division of responsibility, we're not talking simply who is going to wash the dishes and who is going to go out and work. Division of responsibility from a true Torah perspective has to start from a much higher stage, and the question is, what does each one, this is a marriage which constitutes a single entity, and each one contributes something to this entity. It's not just a question of who is going to do what, but just as a chair doesn't stand on 3 legs, it has to have 4 legs, so too a home needs both partners, and each one contributes to this home to make it whole. This concept of wholeness is very, very important. All marriages, especially in the beginning, especially if there is a struggle, whether it is a financial struggle or rearing the children, there are difficulties. And all too often we get bogged down in difficulties, and we are essentially aware of the difficulties, and we lose sight of what is really happening. You have to understand that the home has a quality of wholeness. Like we say, Yud K, there's a Shem Havaya, and the Shem Havaya is complete by the presence of a man and a woman, by the marriage of man and woman. The concept of wholeness, by definition, means that this is an entity that can stand on itself. It can stand on its own legs. Doesn't mean the whole thing. A half a thing needs support. A whole thing stands on itself. And it is extremely important that we should understand that marriage means there is a wholeness. And regardless of the difficulties that life brings about, and there are going to be difficulties, this is not a vacation. This is a road of hard work. But this hard work emanates, it comes from, we call for it because we recognize that there is a wholeness to it. In other words, just to illustrate, like the Chassidus, we want to give misholim. A moshel that will illustrate the point that I want to bring out would be, you have a chair? No, yeah. Oh, there's more chairs in here. Thank you. Take off, please. If you, the home can be viewed from two perspectives. One is I'm building something, and the other is I am fulfilling something. And there's a very big difference in this approach. When you build something, say you're building a home, a house stands when you have a foundation. And then when you build a wall and you do not have you do not finish the full square, then each wall will be shaky. A house stands because each wall, the four walls support each other. Without these four walls, with one wall missing, it'll be shaky until the whole house is made to stand. Now, contrast this to a different situation. Situation is you have a house, and it's a beautiful home. It's built exactly the way you want it. It's lit. It has light. It has beautiful walls. It has windows. It has floors. It has ceilings. It has everything. Now, you want to furnish it. Now, the reason you want to furnish it is because you want to live in it, and you can't live in it without furniture. In other words, this is not a step where if you don't furnish it, the house is going to fall down. On the contrary, what motivates you to bring in the furniture? Because the house stands, because it's a solid home. And you want to fill it. You want to use what you have. And you want to bring out its beauty. So that you could see, this is not just four walls, this is a dwelling place for human beings. If this distinction is clear to everyone, I want to say, if it's not, please tell me and I'll explain it more. This is a very important distinction. When we come to marriage, marriage is not a humanly conceived idea. It's not a humanly created institution. Marriage is a godly institution. From the inception, from the very first day of creation, or the sixth day of creation. The first day of creation of men. Where it was established, God, the creator of the world, established, says, this is going to be a unit. This is a whole unit, a godly creation just like anything else in the world. It stands on its own. Now, our job, now, where is the effort come in? The effort comes in to bringing out all the greatness and the beauty that it contains, that it potentially has. We're not scared. We're not doing our thing because lest we don't, the walls are going to fall apart. We come to it from a positive perspective. We are doing our thing because there's a great thing happening over here. And we draw from that great thing the encouragement and the strength to bring all its potential out. With this background and in this context, since that the institution that God made, the institution of marriage, consists of two people, and the two people together constitute the whole, each one of these individuals is a very important part of that whole. And it is important that we have an idea what part each contributes. In today's modern mentality, the minute you start saying there are different functions for the man and the woman, since we are so enlightened, our first question is, who is more important? Who is secondary? Who is primary? I don't want to be second. Nobody wants to be secondary. So I want to leave all that out because, as I said, we are coming from a Torah perspective. We open up the Chumash and we see this is a godly institution and this is how God meant it to live. And as a matter of fact, just to enlighten you a little more, which is not new to in your light, we said the Maimer, in the Maimer from the Chassan it says that Odom, the word Odom, the term Odom, applies not to a man and not to a woman. Odom means a man and a woman together. Briefly, as I said, I really would like to apply myself to attend to the questions as they're presented and all that. But having been exposed somewhat and seeing what the background with which we come to marriage, and by the way, there's nothing to do with being a lifer or being a Baal Tshuva. I found that there is a universal lack of understanding of what's going on, what this is about. And so that's why I want to give a little background, and then we'll be able to attend to some of the questions, hopefully. What are, from a Torah perspective, what are the contributions that each one brings to the home? very brief terms. And before I actually try to hit it on the nose, each one contributes whatever we are going to define. And that contribution is really incumbent on that individual. They have to produce this. This is the building block of the home. In brief, we know, starting from Chassidus, that Ish v'Isha is Yud K. The Ish represents the Yud, and the Isha represents the K. Yud is Chochmah, you can talk Chassidus, and K is Bina. What is Chochmah? Chochmah is the insight, the perception, the idea. K is the elaboration, the actualization of the idea. The actualization of the idea is what we see. This is the reality of the world. But we all know that without the idea, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Einstein presented a formula, and hundreds and thousands of people built the atom bomb. But he presented the idea. And therefore, it says, this is his idea. This is his. What does it mean it's his? But there are so many people involved in building it. The answer is, as in everything, there is the overall, the makif, and then there is the pnim. The overall idea and that which fills it up. The man, coming down to reality, the man has the responsibility to bring into the home its sense of values, its purpose and its direction. The man is the one who has to define, who has to say, yes, there is a home, there is a marriage, and there must be a marriage. The man primarily has the obligation of marriage, much more than the woman. Paitiel. There's an interesting phenomenon in life, and many times we kind of balk about it. We say, oh, it's not fair, but it happens to be fair. There is, in every company, there is the chairman of the board, or the chief executive officer. This chief executive officer doesn't know what the factory looks like. he sits at meetings and makes certain flowery decisions. And he gets paid for this flowery decision, astronomically in comparison to all the workers, all the people who are doing it. And the reason for that is not just because he's so smart. But here is the key. He is the risk taker. Why is he capable of taking a risk? The reason he's capable of taking a risk is that he sees the end product before it happens. Why does he see the end product before it happens? Because this is the concept of creation. This is the concept of Chokhmah. He perceives the reality before it actually takes place. And because of that perception, he provides a direction for the entire company. And as a result of that direction, the company can flourish, and the company can develop indefinitely. Now, does that mean that what he is doing is more important than what everyone else in the company is doing? Not at all. It doesn't mean that it's more important, because without the entire staff, without the entire effort of all the people involved, nothing would ever happen. So in terms of building this company, everyone contributes to the company. But what he gives is the direction. So therefore, a company consists of two things. It consists of direction, and it consists of the power of getting there. Two separate things. Hashem has made men and women with these very distinct capabilities. The man is a conceptualizer. The man is, as beside me, his job is to perceive the home before it actually happens, and to provide guidance and foresight. And the woman is the one who is capable infinitely better than the man of getting things done. I want to give you an illustration, because we are kind of walking on a tightrope. The man comes home Friday night and he makes kiddush. And the woman stands there and she listens to the kiddush and she is yotze from his kiddush. Now, if there is, so to speak, a shortage of understanding of a Torah perception of relating to Torah life the way Torah defines it. And we find it in, so to speak, quote-unquote religious circles, modern religious circles. He says, all right, why should he make Kiddush? I want to make Kiddush myself. There is a whole challenge in certain homes. Why does the man have Hasobah Pesach night and not the woman? And I'm talking about religious homes. Now I just want to tell you, I don't know exactly, I don't know many of you, but I'm sure, and if I'm wrong, hopefully we'll be able to write it as time goes on. The woman who stands by the side of her husband and listens to the Kiddush, she feels the godly gift that she has a husband for whom to hear Kiddush. She would not want for any money to make the Kiddush herself. That's half a person. When the man makes Kiddush, that's his job. This is what fills the home. This is what makes me fulfilled. That gives me a whole, gives me a wholeness to my home. There is something real happening here. There is something real happening here. Real happening means there is a concept, there is a perception, and there is an actualization. I had, as I said, over the years, and this is what brought me to kind of realize perhaps I can contribute something, help some people sort their things out. A man called me up. He says, I've come to a point where I have to do something. I have to clear things up. Things are going from bad to worse. So we sat down, and he is not about tshuva. He is a Hamish Imam, but whatever he left home a little early, makes no difference what the background is. He is a Hamisher, she is a Hamisher, she is a lifer, he is a lifer. They definitely are dedicated to have a good life. There's no question about it. It's not a question of bickering. It's not a question of laziness. Something's not going. Something's not going, and she's frustrated, and he is frustrated. So we sat down, and I let him tell me this story. When he was alone, she wasn't there. And he is telling me, I do everything. This is the classic situation where parents are screaming about their children. I've done everything for them. Why are they going off the deep end? I'm doing everything. I cook. I wash the dishes. Friday night I serve. I make the Kiddush, of course, and I serve. She hardly ever sits Friday night by the table. And he's describing all the good things that he's doing. And then I say to him, all the good things he's doing are all wrong. You should not be serving Friday night. You should be sitting by the table. If there is a table, if you're sitting by the table, there is something happening. When you leave the table is empty, no matter how many people are sitting around. It doesn't mean that if your wife needs help in the kitchen, you shouldn't go. By all means, you should. But that's not your thing. Your contribution is that you set a tone by the table. You tell her you set so to speak, you bring the value, you bring a purpose. This is Shabbos table. By you going out to serve and wash the dishes and cook, all of that, you're not contributing to the home what a man is supposed to contribute. In other words, your home has a whole bunch of cooks, but it has no man. It doesn't have the purpose. It doesn't have the concept of where the ship is going. It's going nowhere. It's actually threading water. So, in a nutshell, I would put it this way, and this is something which I've said many times, individuals to couples. We have to understand the following. There is no objection at all, there's no question that a man should try and help his wife, especially if there are children in the house and so forth. You need the help. There is a woman, absolutely, if she is capable of going out and help out with the finances of the home or whatever, it's absolutely in line, absolutely right. But one thing has to be understood clearly by the man and by the woman. When the man washes dishes, he is helping his wife. When the wife goes out and works, she is helping her husband. There should not be a confusion over there. Perhaps you can open the window. Well, open a couple of windows. Okay, having said that, it's very brief. Hopefully it's clear enough. If anybody has questions, and I believe that this principle is something which is of utmost importance in order to, a taking off point, to know where we're going. I have here, is it all right? Should we go on? Do you have any questions regarding this? I have here a couple of questions that were presented to me here. Question 1 on this piece of paper: how do you motivate your husband to learn and exercise after he has worked all day?
Or you could turn it around. How do you motivate your wife more? Whoever you want to turn it around.
Well, the truth is, in a certain sense, this is, so to speak, outside of the purview of this idea of this session. What is there are psychological books, that advise people how do you approach and how do you get the twist in and get somebody to do what you want them to do. The way I would react to this question from the perspective that we are trying to develop here is totally different and not a direct answer to this question. I would perhaps just pay attention to the first 5 words of the question. How do you motivate your husband? Period. Or I wouldn't even reward it. How do you encourage your husband? And that, of course, goes both ways. How do you encourage your husband? How do you encourage your wife? That's it. What the husband does, this is a separate thing completely. Whether he does exercise or he goes to learn or whatever it is. Let us separate the two, and I'll explain to you how and why. When in a marriage, 2 people live extremely close to one another. There cannot be any closer relationship. There is no closer relationship. The closeness of this relationship results naturally, provided that their relationship is normal and is friendly. It naturally results of each of them learning and picking up qualities, good qualities from each other. So, if you value exercise and you value learning, if you have a normal relationship with your husband, eventually it will trickle down. It will, so to speak, go through the skin and enter into him. But the important thing is that you have, the key to this is that you have a good and healthy relationship. What constitutes a good and healthy relationship? This I do want to discuss. When 2 people get married, just want to stand back a little bit and understand what's going on. 2 people get married, and they met each other beforehand. They thought they knew everything about each other. And almost invariably, they find out soon enough that no way did they know everything about each other. The truth is, it's a lifetime. And at the time when you get married, only this much of the potential, of the human potential, has surfaced even to your own knowledge, much less to someone else's knowledge. Marriage puts such demands and draws so much on the potential of the person that it actually opens him up, her up, with finding areas and finding ideas and finding resources that they were not aware themselves, that they existed. So when you get married, you're not getting married to an individual who knows this and this and that, and who is able to do such and such. You're marrying this individual. This individual, all you know about him or her is that they have a neshama, and the neshama has surfaced to a certain degree, and you can see which way it's going. That's basically, you know, the little window you have. And provided that it continues going in that same direction, it's going to be a beautiful individual, beautiful human being. And therefore, when you come into this marriage, and you made a decision to marry this individual, reminds me of an actual instance that happened that I was kind of involved or talked to. This was a girl from a modern background, modern not in terms of Yiddishkeit, a modern outlook, a very progressive, quote-unquote, outlook. And she was engaged, and I knew her husband and so forth, and I said, oh, fine gentleman, yeah. Believe me, this is what you said. He has a lot of potential. That ended my conversation. I knew I was outside. I was completely canceled out. Potential, is that what you marrying a potential? What do you mean by potential? She marries a potential, which means that she knows the way that she's going to be able to mold him, quote unquote, into this edifice that she perceives that he should be. We don't want that. That's not what we are marrying for. The best that we can do, and the best that we should do, this is not a cop-out, this is what we should do, is give each other encouragement to be themselves. If you find out that they're a little different than you, so be it. This is the guy you married. This is the girl you married. And these differences are going to, and by virtue of your relationship, they're going to melt. They're going to merge. You're going to learn from each other. But to start molding each other, this is a prescription for I wouldn't say disaster, I don't have to use this kind of words, for much unhappiness. The first thing you're making a statement is you're just not good enough. You're not what you're supposed to be, not what I expected of you. This is exact opposite of what you can contribute to each other in a positive way. sometimes we have couples in the house, and Friday night, and I can tell you, I look at the couples, they're very nice, beautiful people, just the way there must be an understanding, this is my wife, this is my husband. This gives each of them the strength, and the strength, not that they get strength from each other, it opens them up and allows their inner strength to surface. They're not afraid to be themselves. They're not afraid to bring out all they have and bring it into this life. And this brings out all the creativity and all the strength that a person can possibly have. To illustrate 2 points that each one of us will understand. The husband's primary job or responsibility is to earn a living. The wife's primary responsibility is to keep home, to make it pleasant, to make pleasant and edible dinners, and so forth. Make your home pleasant. Now, anyone who's exposed, who has known the meaning of earning a living, knows that things don't grow on trees. And money doesn't come when you wish for it. You have to do research, you have to look around, you have to find out, you have to test the waters and see what you can do, what you cannot do, where you would be accepted, where you would not be. And sometimes you have to be creative, sometimes you have an idea of a business. In order to earn a living properly, a man has to have the sense that he has the freedom, so to speak, and the trust of his wife to be a little bit creative. to go and start kind of rummaging and looking into possibilities. And they find possibilities for himself. If he has to walk a narrow path, as defined by his dear wife, you call up this phone number, you make this appointment, you go on this interview, and you take that job. This drains the man from any creativity. He may do exactly all of that for one of two reasons, or maybe for both. One is to keep the peace in the home, and the other is he's afraid to take a chance. He hasn't been given that encouragement to go and take a chance. Whereas, as a matter of fact, taking a chance is in fact his contribution to the home. Just like the chief executive officer, having, so to speak, a perception, an outlook, and seeing, where we can go, even if we're not there yet. I'm sure all men understand this. Women also know that in order to learn how to cook, you have to take a chance. You have to make new things, and sometimes they work out and sometimes they flop. And if you're afraid to take a chance, because if they flop, the husband will say to you, why didn't you learn how to cook? Then it's going to be, you're just not going to do it. And if you're not going to do it, you're never going to learn how to cook. So very simple illustrations of very, very important ideas that are very far-flung, that have very broad ramifications. The idea is, again, this is my husband. B'hashgacha protis, however I made a choice. I made the choice intelligently, to the best of my understanding, to the best of my understanding, to the best of my knowledge. It was a correct decision. It was definitely a correct decision. Because these decisions, as I said, this whole institution is not my idea, it's not my creation. This is a godly institution. And you know something? There's something that I want to interject here. At the time when you go out and you meet a potential cross and potential color, and you make a decision to get married, at that moment you have a certain perception of each other that goes much deeper than the surface. Later on, after you get married and you go into the daily routine, you might lose sight of that which you have not recognized, of that which actually convince you and reveal to you the person that you're marrying. But that insight is still there. It happens to be true. But because of the demands of the practical life, you kind of lose sight of it. Or you are in danger of losing sight of it. And we have to know that this is a true and correct decision. And therefore, what my job is to encourage my spouse and give him, her full encouragement to be themselves. not to be them, to be what I want them to be. This is your best chance of having, of a success, of building something. So therefore, coming back to this question, as I said, I would only accept the first 5 words of the question, 6 words, pardon me. How do you encourage instead of motivate your husband? And I say, and this applies to the in the verse, how do you encourage the wife? If your wife, I'll start from that, it's easier. If your wife makes a cake and it flopped, to you, this is the best cake you ever ate. It's got crust, it's got this, it's got that. It's really great. You want to have good cake? Better say that. It's a trivial illustration of a very broad truth. And the reverse, in other words, to the other side, it's the same thing. Your husband, whatever he does, is the best. And if it is the best, then that's your only chance, believe me, the only chance that it will improve tomorrow. And the reason you're saying this, it is the best, you mean it, you're not lying. Because the reason you're saying it is the fact that, yes, this is my husband. and this is the right thing for him to do if that's what he's doing. It's true. We have to always go back to the center and recognize this is a true institution. There's no mistakes in here. This is real. If you want your husband to learn from good qualities that you have, and I'm sure everyone has good qualities, the only way for that to happen is for you to forge a unit. Or to create this unity so that the husband sees a good quality in his wife. He does not look at it as a good quality that he sees from outside. He recognizes this is a good quality that is part of his home. Oh, thank God, I got it. Oh, she has it, but same thing. If she has it, I have it. And the same thing is why in the universe. You learn from each other because that's yours. But if we, as Shalom presented as an outsider, then it's a lost case. The second question on the list, I'm not going to read the whole question, but I want to apply this question, thanks for speak, is pivoted on the concept of argument. We had an argument, and then there are all kinds of results of the argument. And again, you know, you can go to counselors and find ways to maneuver things around your way, that way. I'm here to tell you just what is the Torah perception, or the Torah, what chayas and koyach the Torah gives us to live this married life, and how and what the resultant arguments, quote unquote, would be present as a result. And I want to distinguish between argument and disagreement. Disagreements are, this is a Jewish privilege to disagree. But argument is a different thing. If you think about it, you will see clearly that the underpinning of an argument is the perception, the attitude that there is me and there is my spouse. We are on two sides of the coin, two sides of the river. There is me and him, there is me and her. That does not belong in a Jewish home. I've said many times, young people have come to discuss, the early marriage and all that. And I said, the early years, the early period, especially the first year, whatever the early period of marriage, you find out a lot of things about each other. Many people have the attitude, oh, I found out such and such about him, about her. How do I change that? And to their chagrin, my answer is, you found out what you find out about each other. The purpose of finding that out is to know what you should avoid in not creating, not hurting each other. Not how you should change that. You have to learn about each other so that you know each other's pluses and minuses, what he or she can take, what he or she cannot take, and what he and she cannot take, I'm not going to give. That's the purpose of learning about each other. In a Jewish home, this is a blessed home. This is a godly home. Where is argument coming? I mean, we're not fooling ourselves, not being naive. There's going to be an argument. But there is no justification for it. Like anything else, we fail sometimes. We're only human. We make mistakes. But there is no validity to it. It should not have been. And we have to retract as soon as we recognize it. We have to, it's like a person cutting his finger. Does he encourage the cut? Oh, there's a cut, there's a cut, there's a cut. No, he puts a band-aid on it and covers it up and lets it, and hopes it heals and he wouldn't even know that it was a cut happening there. An argument between a husband and a wife is a cut in this wholeness of the home. Are we going to pull this cut apart, keep it apart, and let the soul set in there? Are we going to put a Band-Aid on it and let it heal and so that there's no trace of it? There's a wholeness, there's a whole unit here. There are individual people in there, but these individual people are constantly building a whole. There's a whole unit here. And any argument, not disagreement, argument is really a strange intrusion into this wholeness. I don't want to go, as I said, into the counseling perspective of this, but just very, very, very simple thing. Oh, why doesn't she stop the argument? Why doesn't he stop the argument? And I'm saying, to me, this is just does not hold water. There is no such a pretense. There's no such an argument. There's no validity to this. Again, it's like you have a cut in your finger. You're not going to pull this side and say, oh no, you grow this way or you grow in this way. You don't care which side it grows, just make it grow in. No, it's so hard.
Just take that.
Just flip there. Coming back, and this is my whole purpose, and this is my hope to convey this message. It isn't the practical negativity of the argument that I'm attending to. It is rather that we should understand to what degree arguments don't belong in a Jewish home. By definition, they don't belong there. If it is a home, if it is a unit, it's a unit. If you think one way and he thinks another way, so you add them. If you can't come to a compromise, come to understanding, you go and consult some people, maybe a way to come to, to make a decision. Sometimes you have to compromise, whatever it is. But the argument don't belong. It's creating a schism in the home. It's creating a conflict. And then I have the third question here. Importance of a husband making parnos. And the answer is yes. This is clearly one of the primary responsibilities of a husband, is to make parnos. What can the wife do to help her husband make parnos? Practically, every situation is different. But again, from our perspective here, where we are coming from, what we are trying to do to establish in terms of a Jewish home. I always repeat this, something which is stays out in my mind. This is going back to something that I heard from my wife's grandfather, where he was here in the early part of the last century, and Parnosa was very difficult, especially for Hashem Shabbos. It was almost in. Let's send it back to the owner. No, this is.
It just needs to be ejected and flipped over.
It's not. Okay. Okay. So put this in. Put this one in.
Flip it.
I'll flip it.
Yeah, flip the other one. No. Flip the other one around.
Flip it there?
No, not the
Well,
How's it there?
Okay. The standard was, he told me himself, I knew him quite well. He would come home Friday, and he would come home, and he would say, Sima, I don't have a job for Sunday. This was standard. He came Friday, he got his paycheck, and he said, tomorrow I'm not coming. And he was told, if you don't come tomorrow, don't bother coming on Sunday. I don't have a job for Sunday. And she would say, don't worry, Mendel. The one who provided this week will provide next week. Okay. This enabled him to have a Shabbos. It's enabled him to go out on Sunday to look for a job, for work, with full confidence and full encouragement. Had she had a reaction, oh really, what are we going to do? What's going to be with us? There would be no Shabbos, there would be no Sunday. This is going back to the very first thing that I said before. Your best bet to bring out the best of each other is to encourage each other to bring out the best of each other. To be the best that they can be. Okay. If there are any quick questions, yes.
Well, you say the story you told really beautiful.
Sorry?
The story you told about Sima and Mendel is very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a very, very beautiful attitude. I want to ask about like really overwhelming external circumstances and like how they affect a marriage, and like when it's like it just reaches a threshold for somebody and it's just like you can't, it's like you just get to a point where you can't be so like
Gracious.
yeah, I'm not a perversion kind of thing, like, you know, and like they're not so they just parts of you come out, and that's part of reality also, and it's not necessarily an argument or a disagreement, but it's overwhelming outside circumstances. And it affects the marriage. Right.
Well, it shouldn't affect the marriage. It can affect a moment. It affects a moment. That's what I said. Sometimes you fail, just like anything else. What about, forget about the fact that your husband fail. What about you? Sometimes do the wrong thing, and then you turn around and say, oh, I'm sorry, I did the wrong thing. It's exactly the same way. It shouldn't affect the marriage. Meaning, the marriage, coming back to the first point that I made, the marriage is a whole thing. The marriage is not tenuous. It's not shaky. That the minute there's an argument, it falls apart. There's nothing there. No, the marriage always has to be viewed as a whole. I made a mistake and had an argument, and it's not a question of who is going to ask who's for forgiveness. You turn around and say, okay, finished. We're back to marriage. We're back in it. There's an interesting, if I may take a minute, I always use the illustration of a cut in the finger. It's an interesting phenomenon, very important lesson. You get a cut in the finger, we all know that you cover it with a Band-Aid and it heals to the point where there's no trace. No trace. How exactly does it happen? Why exactly does it happen? Now, there is, of course, the medical explanation that, how the molecules grow together, whatever it is. But we all know the molecules grow together only if there is a whole thing. The molecules of this finger can go in any direction. Why do they go back to this way? Because that's the design of the neshama. The neshama says that Chaim has 5 fingers. And that's how the molecules grow. It's not the molecules, Chas v'sholom, that create the body. It's the neshama that directs how it should be. So when you have a cut, what's the difference between a cut in the finger and a cut in the paper? The answer is, right, no neshama. The cut in the paper is a cut. The paper is no longer whole. And there is absolutely no way that it can become whole again. You can put Band-Aids, you can put tapes on it. It's never going to be whole. It's going to hold together with a cut. The finger, while it has a cut, from the perspective of the neshama, it is whole. There is no cut. The cut is only an external body effect. As far as the neshama is concerned, it's a whole. And because it's whole, this is why it goes back together. Because it has been whole while it was cut. A home is whole while the argument is going on. And this is why it can heal to the point of no trace. But we have to recognize there is a wholeness to it. It's a real thing. We all want to have blessed homes. And we all have the blessings coming to us to have blessed homes. We have to know that a blessed home is one that recognizes that there is a wholeness. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu shoyre b'asar shlim. Kedusha and Shechina dwells in Asar Shlim, in a place that's whole. Not in a place that's pogrom, a place that has blemishes. The home is whole. If there is an argument, even Chas v'Shalom, there is an argument, that's an extraneous thing. It doesn't belong there. Like you said, I'm not a tzaddik, fine, but your home is a tzaddik. That doesn't change. Yeah.
I only wanted to verify something, that if it's clear, husband and wife are really the same person. And knowing this, also that the wife knows who she is and what her responsibilities are. And the husband knows who he is and what his responsibilities are. Like you said in the beginning, husband's responsibility is to go out and earn a parnasa, and the wife's responsibility is to take care of him and to make his home a welcoming place. But when arguments do occur, wouldn't you just agree simply that the wife needs a mashpia, the husband needs a mashpia, and both husband and wife must respect mutual mashpia? I mean, what I'm saying is that I find just in experiences, not necessarily with myself, but as a klal, and I think it's very important to mention that we're all human. We all reach, the end of our rope, so to speak, in Baruch Hashem, we have a long relationship with our husbands, thank God. But I think that maybe I just would like for your nod, or maybe the shape, that really the key to a successful relationship must be that the wife has someone to speak to, the husband has someone to speak to, and both mutually respect those people, or they both feel comfortable speaking to the same person. Because I'm just saying that I think that's such an important recruit to bring up. You always need an objective opinion no matter what relationship, especially, applying to a husband and wife. I just would like to know, just to expound on that, because
no question about it. The idea of speaking things over is a very positive idea. As a matter of fact, we all know that this was the Rebbe's request, that everyone have a mashpia. And in life, after Gimel Tammuz simply demands it. There's absolutely no way. As I pointed out before, that when you get married, neither would the people themselves know what life holds for them and what their capabilities are. They first begin to surface as the demands of life come. And you're essentially groping in the dark and finding your way. When a person is finding his way, or her way, it's entirely appropriate. It would be foolish not to discuss it with someone and get a clarity of what the situation is. None of us are walking on a paved road. We don't know where we're going from day to day. So mashpia is definitely a great idea. And as far as respecting each other's mashpia, that goes without saying, simply because out of respect for each other, you have respect for each other's mashpia.
If the argument is a cut, then what was disagreement? Because they're very different things.
Disagreement simply means I think this way and you think this way, which is entirely all right. I mean, you can have your thoughts. And you talk it over and find, sometimes you can convince each other, and sometimes you make a compromise, sometimes you remain in doubt and you go and ask somebody else, what do you think is the right thing to do? Provided you're both looking for what is the right thing to do, rather than do it my way or do it my way. do it my way doesn't belong in a home. Let's do it the right way.
When my husband and wife are making their homes together, there's a lot of facts that kind of fall in this gray area, that they're not earning a parnasa, but they're not taking care of the children and cooking the meals and making Shabbos either, like raking the leaves, doing the bills, taking out the garbage. I know every couple things are working out differently. But do you have any suggestions for how couples make those kinds of independent now?
Practically speaking, want me to give you a perspective, it would be this. There are certain things that a person is positively disposed to, naturally to do. Certain things that he has an aversion to do. There are certain people, some people who have a knack for exactitude, for balancing the checkbook. They have the patience to go through the whole thing. There are people who just can't do it. So, and the same thing, like you say, in the gray areas, it's not a question of whose responsibility it is. What happens is the one for whom this is easier to do, Pashut, emotionally and in this position, they would do it. I know homes where the wife could not pay attention to the finances whatsoever. She didn't have the heart and the stomach for it. And everything fell on the husband. Not because he has a special knack to it, but he was a little stronger morally, and he, do what you have to do. And as time went on, she became a little stronger, and she took over some of the responsibilities slowly, and it made it easier for him, and it also gave her a little, so to speak, satisfaction in terms of accomplishment. So it kind of balanced each other out. The important thing is that there was no criticism, there was no, it's hard for you, but, the one who can do it does it. One who can do it does it. And you know what happens? If in fact one who can do it does it, eventually the other one also can relate to it better and also pick up on it. There cannot be any hard rules on these things. The hard rule is the one that says, like we said before, help each other, encourage each other, and know that your home